Joining us now, Mercedes Schlapp. Mercedes, the communications director of the White House for President Trump. Joining us now, Mercedes, fresh back from the White House Easter egg roll. Good to have you with us, Mercedes.
It's great to be on. Thanks for having me.
Okay, now you got all the daughters. Did they all go to the Easter egg roll?
So actually, I was out of the country with one of my daughters, and we did this lovely pilgrimage.
Really?
It was wonderful. Lots of prayer intentions for our country and for this president, and for those who fight the good cause like yourself. And I was actually, I took a little bit of a break, and Matt had the 4 girls and took the 4 girls to the Easter egg roll, and apparently it was successful because, of course, when you have a 15-year-old who's my oldest, she's pretty much in charge of all the little kids, so it works out well for us.
Well, very good. Well, I'm glad you had a little bit of a respite and went on that pilgrimage, but now you're back in the saddle. And look, I got to start today with the hysteria going on with the Mueller letter to William Barr. Did William Barr release the full report or not? What have I missed here?
Yeah, I think he released it close to 2 weeks ago. If you haven't watched the news, and I think that it's I think what's important to understand here is that there was now there's this hysteria in the media about whether he was concerned about the conclusions or the letter that the Attorney General Barr had mentioned. Well, there was no factual disagreement. Attorney General Barr took what was in the letter from the report and for all to see and put it in this conclusion. So it's incredibly troubling to see that now there's all this reporting happening that Mueller is not happy with how the media reporting has been on the conclusion side of this. I think what we're going to see in the next less than 2 hours is that William Barr will testify in the Senate. I'm sure he's going to be asked that question. And again, like I'm at a point right now that we have been incredibly transparent in this process, and it's time to move forward. If Mueller thought that the president had committed a crime, he would have said so in the report, and he did not do that. So I think it's moving into a direction where we have to be realistic, where we have done everything we can from a White House perspective. The report is out there, and we really want to move on.
Well, you want to get something done for America instead of talking about the same thing over and over. The report is out there. It's 435 pages. It's online. Go read it. Do an op-ed in the Washington Post or the LA Times or whatever you want. But now to go back and be saying that Mueller didn't like the narrative. Who cares what Barr's narrative was? The report is out there. Read it yourself. There's nothing there. And you can't obstruct a crime that didn't exist. There's no obstruction because there was nothing. He was completely exonerated. And now here we are covering it again instead of talking about infrastructure, the economy. Tell us about the infrastructure meeting yesterday. This is one of the themes the president campaigned on. He said, if I get elected, we're going to rebuild our infrastructure, roads, bridges, trains, deep ports, all of them crumbling, haven't put the money in it. Tell us about that meeting at the White House.
Yeah, so it was surprisingly, I think it was a productive meeting in the sense that the Democrats laid out their ideas for infrastructure. We always find that infrastructure is one of those issues that actually it can be bipartisan. I think that the Democrats are more along the lines of moving beyond what we would consider to be the infrastructure that we need to focus on. But where we can find agreement is in areas like rural broadband, ensuring that we have funds and the resources and partnering with states to build the roads and bridges and make those improvements. We know that when you invest in infrastructure, it's good for the economy. I always think that that's always part of the financial stool of the economic stool of America, which is deregulation, which we've been incredibly effective at doing, where we know there's been huge savings for every household in terms of the deregulation that we have pushed forward. Secondly, obviously, is a tax cut and the reform that we've seen benefit families across the country as well. And then thirdly is investment in infrastructure. So I think that there is this plan that having these discussions are important. Obviously, this was a discussion with Democrats, so we obviously need the input of Republicans, but hopefully we can find some middle ground to be able to define the needs of our country in terms of what we need from infrastructure. As we know, a lot of the infrastructure is actually owned by the states, but how the federal government can work with the states in order to streamline the process so it's not as bureaucratic and we can make projects move quicker, and that being part of it, as well as ensuring that in this deregulation, for example, we signed an executive order a couple weeks ago that we're able to ensure that there is the ability, again, to streamline the process in building these pipelines which lead to energy independence. So it's all interlinked between the economy, between infrastructure, and between even energy independence when you're talking about the pipelines and the creation of these pipelines.
You're on the John Fredericks Radio Network and the John Fredericks Radio app. We're with Mercedes Schlapp live at the White House. Mercedes is the White House Communications Director for the President. Mercedes, I want to get to the President's edict, his executive order the other day on revising the way we're accepting and doing these asylum requests at the border, giving an executive order mandating that these get adjudicated in 180 days, changing the process, charging a fee. Obviously, the Democrats that want free and flowing illegals to come into the country in an open border scenario objected to that, went ballistic over it. How does that play out? Are we going to get the Ninth Circuit to issue a stay? Can you explain that to us?
Well, we'll see. The Ninth Circuit is always very tricky. I think we've had not a lot of success in the Ninth Circuit, but we've had more. I think one of the last ones we did have success with was actually on the migration mitigation protocol, which is the one that would basically allow the illegal aliens to stay in Mexico instead of waiting here in the United States to be processed for asylum. So what our plan is with this presidential memorandum that the president signed is, again, we want to expedite these asylum cases. They're taking way too long, and then what happens is that once they're here in the country and an illegal alien basically claims asylum, then they're pretty much released into the country because there's no place to hold them. There's no room because we're seeing just increases of numbers of illegal aliens continue to flood and come through our border.
Yes.
So the idea here with the presidential memorandum is that we want to ensure legitimate asylum seekers can access asylum, so those that actually need help, while more efficiently processing and removing illegal migrants who are not eligible and who do not qualify. What we have seen time and time again is a vast majority of these individuals who are coming through the border claim asylum. They actually don't even qualify for asylum. So we want to take care of those meritless claims and be able to repatriate them and send them back to their country.
And those people that are coming to the United States and claiming asylum legitimately, which what asylum was made for, they're getting to the back of the line because it's being flooded. Because, look, 90% of the people who claim asylum, when they actually get in front of a judge, their asylum claims are rejected because they don't meet any of the standards that are laid out in U.S. law.
If I can, I'm going to make 2 points here. One is on average, out of the 100 individuals subject to expedited removal who claim a fear of persecution, only 12 are granted asylum. So it's only 12 out of the 100. And I will say, my father, who came from Cuba, actually was, fought against Castro, was a political prisoner. When he claimed asylum, there was credible fear because of political persecution. My dad would have gone back. He would have been killed. So there is these, you make it very clear with asylums, there's certain requirements that need to be met. One, of course, being whether it's like a political persecution, religious persecution. What we are learning with the vast majority of these individuals coming up from Central America is that they have economic reasons why they come to the United States. And so that would not be able to apply when you're claiming asylum.
We're with Mercedes Schlapp live at the White House. Mercedes is the White House Communications Director for President Trump. Mercedes, I want to get to something that left everybody's radar screen, except for small business owners like myself that actually understand how this works. The president, in another memorandum the other day, saying that he wanted to get change and relax the 1099 laws for hiring contractors for small companies in lieu of making them W-4 employees right off the bat, that is part of the new gig economy, and that would spur opportunities for people that rather than be able to hire them full time, they could get into a field, work for a time as a contractor, and then go from there. If you own a small business, that is another regulation. If that is relaxed or changed, open up a lot of doors for a lot of people to get in the fields that they're training for. But it's been given absolutely zero coverage in the legacy fake news media. Why?
Good question. I think that what you find with this president is that he's such a pro-small business president, a pro-business president, and a pro-American worker president. And so I think we've spent a lot of time under, a lot of it is the leadership, not just of the president, but of Larry Kudlow, for example, our national economic advisor, in finding ways that we can help small businesses succeed and give them the flexibility that they need so that at the end of the day, they are able to hire more workers, and it becomes easier for them to be able to basically determine how they want to set up shop. And so I think we've seen what the president has done, especially in signing this presidential memorandum, as well as other actions that he's taken, that he's created an environment that helps spur entrepreneurship, helps spur the creation of small businesses. I mean, it's why you're seeing more women small business owners that we've seen in our history. You're seeing more minorities also owning small businesses because it's becoming easier. It's because you take away these regulations that have strangled these not only the owners, but also then it says, well, basically, if I have all these regulations in place, then I can't hire. So it's one of these issues that we know has been important. It's something that we spent a lot of time on here in the administration in ensuring that we allow for economic policies that that basically push growth, and it's the growthier economy as we know we want to be pushing here in the administration.
The economic resurgence is off the charts, even though the naysayers told us we were going to get 2% growth last quarter. Government shutdown, we got 3.2. I'm out of time. I've got one question, but all you have to have is a one-word answer. Steve Moore, Federal Reserve Board, is that nomination still alive?
Absolutely. We know that. I know it's a one-word answer, but Stephen Moore is qualified to serve on the Federal Reserve. He's been someone who I think has been he's incredibly intellectual when it comes to answering these questions on what we need to do to help spur the economy. He understood President Trump's vision on the economy since earlier on, and I think he'd be a great addition to the Federal Reserve because we don't want the Federal Reserve to be monolithic. We want it to ensure that there's a variety of different opinions there to help ensure that our economy continues to grow as opposed to create obstacles in stopping the Trump economy, which has been so strong and in helping American workers across the country.
Not only that, but Stephen Moore is an FOJ, Mercedes, friend of John. Thanks for being
there
with
you
us.
go.
And so are you,
Wonderful.
Mercedes, FOJ, and so is your husband,
I
FOJ.
hope I'm an FOJ, too.
You are, and hashtag FOJ Mercedes, friend
there
of
you
John.
Go. I'm going to tweet it out right now.
Tweet it out. You're an FOJ, friend of John.
Okay.
Mercedes Schlapp, thanks for being with us.
You're an FOM. You're a friend of Mercedes.
FOM and FOJ.
There you go.
JF Radio Show. Mercedes, thanks for being with us.